Okay. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I am Deputy Comptroller Sharon Bernardi, and I'm honored to be here today as we announce the expansion of the low-income tax clinics at both the University of Baltimore and the University of Maryland Schools of Law, as well as the expanded services that will be provided to the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service as a result of the passage of SB 480, HB 421. And with those expanded services, I'm really excited to just give a little background of why this is so important to me. When I joined the Comptroller's office nearly 25 years ago, I saw the difficulty many taxpayers experienced when they were trying to navigate the waters of our hearings and appeals section, where I served as an attorney hearing officer. And so I became committed to make certain that all taxpayers are treated equitably and fairly, and the Comptroller has always supported that goal that we've had within the Comptroller's office. And so I made that a personal commitment of mine, and Comptroller Francho, when he first became Comptroller, he made certain that we expanded our outreach in low-income and underrepresented communities around the state. And he's always made it a priority for our agents to deliver service with compassion and empathy. So when Dean Tobin and I had an impromptu meeting at a University of Maryland Law School event, we began to brainstorm how we can expand that access into the Comptroller's office, and that's where the whole idea of low-income tax clinics began. And I knew that Comptroller Francho would support that program. And so I just want to thank Dean Tobin for listening, thank Senator Zucker and Delegate Rosenberg for listening, and especially want to thank you, Comptroller Francho, for allowing me to lead with my heart. And so please welcome Comptroller Peter Francho, who's always puts Maryland taxpayers first. Thank you, Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Sharon. She forgot to mention that in the 170-year history of the Comptroller's agency in Maryland, fabulous tax administration agency, Sharon is the first African-American female to ever be appointed Deputy Comptroller. It's the best thing I ever did, because I get to come out and speak to beautiful, wonderful groups like this. Sharon has to go back and make the trains run on time and make sure we answer 800,000 phone calls within 1 minute. Make sure we get $3 billion in tax refunds back to 3 million Maryland families within 2.5 business days. When Sandy and Craig passed the relief bill, remember back then it was $1 billion from the state, seemed like a lot of money. Now it's, kind of disappeared into the fire hydrant of cash coming from the federal government. But they said on Monday night they passed the bill giving $1 billion to Maryland families, 434,000 of them, and it was send a $300 or $500 check. Monday night, they passed the bill. Tuesday, the governor signed it. Friday, we had every check put in the bank of every deserving Marylander. That's Sharon Bernardi. So thank you very much. I also want to welcome the deans and also Janice Shee. Someday we're going to have taxpayer clinics for everyone. I'm tired, frankly, of doing, we're just going to do it for this low income group. No. What about low middle income? What about middle income people? Terrified by their tax returns. Overwhelmed completely. Someday this group right here is going to help us all think about. Sandy and Craig, I hope you might do a little bit of strategizing. I'm told that almost 2/3 of our income tax returns could be done electronically by us. Nobody needs to file. We already know what their incomes are. But that group of people, I'm not talking about the rich and powerful, I'm talking about just fellow Marylanders. They find our tax system unbelievably intimidating. So I think today, obviously, we're doing something that is very important for our low-income taxpayers. I want to thank everyone because the effects of COVID, 10,000 Marylanders dead, 450,000 infected. And we act as if we're celebrating the return to normalcy. Really. I mean, and it's this group that we're honoring today and talking about who have suffered disproportionately from COVID. I'm just stunned by the actions of Congress and, well, even to a certain extent, state government. So this clinic highlights, among other things, two Marylands, and this is the Maryland divide that many people who, frankly, have fared well during the pandemic aren't going to take advantage of this or can't. However, there are other Marylanders, a third of our state, who do not have the means or simply don't understand complicated tax issues like motor vehicle administration holds. That would scare me, and I'm a lawyer. Audits done by our agency, that would really terrify me. Earned income tax credit denials. Even if I qualified, I could never figure out that document-rich application that you have to file. And then on top of that, when you're facing eviction, as about 70,000 Maryland families currently are, facing eviction, non-payment of rent. They're accused of being freeloaders, taking advantage of the system. No, they haven't had any jobs. They haven't had any income. They can't figure out the application process. Anyway, they're threatened, being put out on the street with their children. And frankly, they're not very worried about their tax situation right now. But we're going to be open. The passage of this legislation will allow for these tax clinics to assist more low-income Marylanders with state-specific legal problems at no cost. I know the expansion of these clinics will be a game changer for those folks. I understand we're contributing $250,000 from the comptroller's office. How great is that? Hopefully it won't cut into our answering the phone. We obviously have a lot of Marylanders in need. I know these clinics will help many people. I want to thank everyone who's here. All of you are just tremendously hardworking and important to the state, especially the folks who have spent time working at the clinics for everything they do. Especially want to recognize Dean Tobin for his years of service. Sharon's a little biased towards the Carey School of Law because that's where she went. I'm a little biased towards the University of Baltimore because I'm for the little guy. I'm for the folks that are, well, put it this way, having Baltimore in your name doesn't hurt. I wish, Dean Tobin, you to have a successful return to teaching. Thank God you're doing that. I'd like to turn it over to my good friend and one of the sponsors, the very powerful, recently promoted to be in charge of the Capital Budget Subcommittee in Budget and Tax. You think I'm important? If you need money, talk to this gentleman, Senator Craig Zucker.
Mr. Comptroller. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Comptroller. Prior to my being appointed a Capital Budget Subcommittee Chair, I was actually the 10th speaker today, so I appreciate getting bumped up a little bit. But in all honesty, thank you, Deputy Comptroller Sharon Bernardi, Mr. Comptroller, thank you for all your leadership. Even the train is, we're on time, and we caught this train in terms of doing the right thing. I appreciate the deans and Janice for your leadership. I know that Delegate Rosenberg has been passionate about this issue for a while, offering tax assistance, legal tax assistance for low-income families, and I appreciated the opportunity to work with him this session. Sandy, thank you for including me this session. But really, I also wanted to just salute the Comptroller's office. I know that Comptroller Francho said one of the best things he did as Comptroller was to hire Sharon Bernardi. I think the third thing he did as the best thing he did as Comptroller, or second, is showing how well a government agency works when they put the people first. So Deputy Comptroller Bernardi, thank you for working with us to make an example of what government's supposed to do. I mean, this past session, what we demonstrated was this is about putting people first and making sure that we're focusing on public service. And these low-income tax clinics are an example of that, where we were providing legal tax assistance on the federal returns, but because there wasn't the state commitment, we weren't able to help people out on their state end. And Deputy Comptroller Bernardi and I and Delegate Rosenberg worked as well as with the law schools to figure out what's the best fund, and we figured out that the unclaimed property fund would be the best. That way it doesn't hurt taxpayer money, but it also makes sure that we're helping people claim those taxpayer money. I mean, this past session, the General Assembly, working with all of you, passed through the Relief Act, expanded historic anti-poverty measures when it comes to expanding the earned income tax credit. However, we're leaving millions of dollars on the table if they don't have the legal representation to claim some of those credits. So this is an opportunity and an example of Marylanders and government working for the people, and I believe that the best is yet to come. And with that, it's my privilege to introduce my good friend, Delegate Sandy Rosenberg.
Thank you, Craig, Senator Zucker, Mr. Chairman. We spend a lot of time in Annapolis deciding what public policy should be. And it's a very deliberative process. People lobby, people try to educate us. We try to make the right decision working with our colleagues, working with experts, working with our staff. But the public, the average citizen, does not know what the law is. And that's true here with taxes, and it's seen as something that, more you don't want to get in trouble by doing the wrong thing than a sense of, well, the law entitles me to get certain payments. So this is this issue where the Dean Tobin came to me, because I teach at both law schools. So you're not going to hear anything from me saying one law school is better than the other. But Peter and I went to the same small liberal arts college in Massachusetts, so I learned from my political science professors, and so did he. You don't, when you're an employee, you speak highly of those in charge. But people don't know what the tax law is, and in a similar vein as the comptroller touched upon briefly, people don't know when they're facing eviction what the law is. So in this session, we passed two bills. Our bill that we're discussing today, and legislation creating a right to access for tenants facing eviction. And we don't have a funding source yet, and for that, and there are people here, the Assistant Dean is working on that very vigorously. But it says something about our state and about our General Assembly and everybody involved. And it was a pleasure, Madam Deputy Comptroller, to work with you and for you to bring your perspective to what we did. But we've taken the first steps to make the law enforceable, to make the law what we do to carry it out in reality for people who are affected by the decisions we make. And it's a great honor to have worked with both deans, with my former House colleague, two former House colleagues, in getting this done, and everybody who played a role in making the law a reality for more Maryland citizens. And there's more work to be done, and I look forward to doing that with all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Should I introduce?
Yes, please.
Okay. Dean Tobin.
Well, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you to the group who's with me. I'm the person who's really excited about tax. So you're going to all of a sudden see a little different view here because this is a really exciting day for me. And it's exciting because sometimes things happen because the right people care and the right people are in the room. And I think it's really hard, except Sharon needs to come up here, to really understand that this doesn't happen without all of these people in the room caring about a better tax administration and about fair taxes for low-income people in Maryland. And it doesn't happen unless the comptroller's office is willing to cooperate. And it certainly doesn't happen if we don't have two leaders in the legislature willing to move this through, right? And so these things happen because a group of people are willing to come together and do something for people who need it. And that's like a really exciting thing. So I want you all to be as excited as I am. So I want to
When you
thank...
say taxes, yes, that generally brings a smile to people's face.
Well, certainly tax refunds sends a smile to people's faces. So I want to thank Delegate Rosenberg, who is an adjunct professor at both of our schools, teaches legislation, and really was an early supporter of being willing to think through how to do this. But then I got Senator Zucker at the end, who, I got to tell you, if you want a guy who's going to figure out how to leap over a hurdle, you want him, because the maneuvering, the way that he made sure we got over the finish line, not just the starting line, was incredible to watch as a person who was a former staffer for a United States Senator. I just marveled at the way these two moved this through, and I was talking to my wife, and I said to her, you know, this thing would have failed like 6 times if somebody didn't do something. And sometimes it was the comptroller, and sometimes it was the two of you. And as you can tell, I'm just so thankful for that, because I think it's really going to matter to the people of Maryland. We just would not have done that without this fantastic group. And to me, this is really a statement not just about how to help low-income taxpayers, but about what we do right in Maryland. We work together in Maryland to try to address the problems facing the people of Maryland. And people with different interests and different ideas come together to do something that will help people. And one of the things we committed to as a law school after the unrest in 2015 in Baltimore was to see how we could be more helpful about access to justice for the people of the state. And we work with our clinics to do a lot of work for access to justice, but we really wanted to see what more things could be done. And that was the same time where Sharon was at an alumni event and we started talking about this effort, and then Delegate Rosenberg was at a class and we started talking about this effort, and everything came together. And one of the things you have to understand when you're talking about justice and access to justice is it's not just about criminal sentencing. It's often about dollars and cents. What low-income people need in Maryland is economic vitality. And what we need to do is ensure that their pocketbooks are supported by our law books, right? That we have a way to help them use the law for their benefit. So just for a second, I want to understand what we actually do, because I'm one of the people who gets the privilege of helping in our low-income taxpayer clinic, and that is Marylanders are having some problem with their taxes. And it may be because they did something wrong. It may be because they didn't understand something. It may be because they don't know. But the problem is, to confront this system is very difficult. And a tax collector, our comptroller, I'm sure he'll support me on this, only wants to collect the tax that's due. That's his job. His job is not to collect more than is due. So you might be saying, why does the comptroller want to support an effort where we might be on the other side? Because the answer is fairness to the Maryland taxpayers is the goal in tax administration and for tax lawyers. We all want people to pay their fair share and no more. So it makes sense that they'd want to support our effort to show that people are only paying what's due. The second thing that's really important to understand is it's confusing for Maryland taxpayers. So what we help to do is provide sort of a translation. We can ensure that when we go to the comptroller, we're saying, this is the situation. And the comptroller agents, the people we're working with, have some idea and trust that we're putting this together in an accurate way. So we help tax administration. This is a small amount of money to help tax administration and tax justice. And the last thing is, it's a little hard sometimes for the comptroller to help the people that they're working with. They try, but technically in an adversary position, and we have ethical duties. So we have an ability to represent the taxpayers in an ethical way in the negotiations and actions with the comptroller. So as you can see, what happens here is an efficient tax administration where people are less frustrated about what they do. And so in the end, that's our goal. And so finally, I want to call out the people who do this work on the ground. Because one of the things when we talk about collaborations is this is a collaboration between MVLS, University of Baltimore, UBalt now, School of Law, and the Carey School of Law to make this happen. And so I want to give a shout out to, I think Melinda is the person who's doing this now at UBalt, to Jessica, who is now with us to do the Maryland component, Beverly, who does the Maryland, not my, low-income taxpayer clinic, and to Janice, who's with the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, because these are the people on the ground helping the taxpayers. So now I get to turn it over to my good colleague and friend, and in closing this whole great collaboration, and you can tell I mean it, this is a wonderful ability to collaborate, but it also shows how the two law schools collaborating together can make real progress. And so I am so thrilled that Dean Weiss is a partner with me in this effort, and my good friend, and I welcome him to the podium. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I would first of all like to welcome all of you to our courtyard here at the University of Baltimore School of Law. Very glad to host this event and on this happy occasion. And I'd very quickly like to thank everybody who's already been thanked and who has spoken. The Controller's Office, Controller Francho, Deputy Controller Bernardi, our wonderful legislative champions, Senator Zucker, Delegate and Professor Rosenberg, Janet Shee, I'm going to introduce in a moment, from Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, and my colleague Donald Tobin. So Donald told you he's a tax expert. I am not. I won't pretend to be. He's excited about one aspect of this, but I'm also excited because in addition to all the ways in which this effort helps low-income Maryland taxpayers, it's also giving us the opportunity to better educate our students. We are a law school. We're both law schools, and so this is really doing double duty here in serving the public and helping us produce and graduate better educated lawyers who are going to go on to become practicing lawyers in this jurisdiction. Interestingly, the University of Baltimore School of Law is going to take a slightly different approach to this new grant than the other two entities that will benefit from it. And our wonderful colleague, Melinda Dunmeyer, working with Sakina Tillman, our fellow in the tax clinic, have come up with an approach that is somewhat different. We're going to be involved in outreach and public education to make sure that Marylanders know their rights under the tax law. Maryland recently expanded the earned income tax credit, but people don't know that they're eligible for it or how best to utilize that benefit. We're also concerned about classification issues. There are people who are misclassified as independent contractors when in fact they're employees, and that has tax consequences. So that effort, I think, is going to be a valuable complement to the work that University of Maryland, Carey Law School will be doing, and MVLS will be doing. So I'm very excited as well for that reason about this. I thank especially our legislative champions for their hard work, and I thank everybody who's contributed to this. And so now I will finally turn the program over to our final colleague, Janice Shee from MVLS.
Thank you. So hello everyone, thank you. So my name is Janice and I am the director of the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic at Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service. So MVLS is the oldest and largest provider of pro bono civil legal services to low-income Marylanders, and we are celebrating 40 years this year. So very good. So the LITC assists clients who have tax issues with the IRS in the state of Maryland. In the 22 years that our clinic has been in existence, we have assisted hundreds of clients with federal tax issues. Now, with this state funding, we can focus on state-specific issues and have hired a new paralegal, hi Asia, to assist with this process, allowing us to serve many more Marylanders in need, and we are very excited to be able to share in this news today. So, low-income Marylanders who have tax issues with the Maryland Comptroller face multiple consequences. Once a taxpayer owes a tax, penalties and interest are added. This quickly escalates into an even larger sum owed with taxpayers often feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to even start to deal with this issue. Having legal representation to guide taxpayers is essential to resolving their tax issues. Resolutions such as hardship status, offers in compromise, and sustainable, affordable installment agreements are difficult to achieve on one's own. Most taxpayers do not even know these options exist, much less know how to apply them. So I'd like to share one such story of a client who wasn't even aware that her balance due was so high. So Betty is a 72-year-old retired government employee with a state balance of $1,599, putting her at risk of having her pension levied or garnished. Betty admits to not having filed her tax returns from 2004 through 2011 due to dealing with multiple medical issues, including breast and colon cancer, a stroke, and renal failure during that time. So she was a little bit focused on some other issues. So Betty had tried to work with a private company to resolve her tax issues, but a balance still remained. So MVLS volunteer Joe Dugan stepped in to help. First, he helped Betty file back all of her back tax returns, and then discovered that Betty actually owed more than $33,000 to the state. So a little bit more. So that was a big surprise to Betty. So then Joe then worked with Betty to do an offer in compromise to the state for $0, which was accepted. So this is an amazing win for Betty. Yes. And so she can now breathe much easier. So, and please note that both Betty and her volunteer are available for phone interviews. So finally, I'd like to invite tax representatives to join our volunteer panel. Thank you. Although our name is Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service, the Maryland Comptroller does recognize certified public accountants and enrolled agents as tax representatives, and we welcome them to be volunteers as well. So like Joe, you can make a world of difference for the Bettys of this state. So I want to thank everybody. We've had an amazing team. Thank you so much for shepherding this through the legislature, and I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.